What's up, everybody? Just wanted to jump into a live, say hello, go over some things that I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about last live, but the live got pretty long. I hope everyone's feeling all right, staying safe, being healthy. I had some questions last time that I couldn't really get to about some supplements that I take. So I'm going to share some of the supplements that I take that have really helped me. Goes without being said, I'm not a doctor, so if you do want to get any of these, talk to your doctor first. Supplements can have adverse effects on one person and be helpful to another. So I'm not necessarily recommending any of these, but they do work for me. So maybe you can do your own research and kind of go from there. So I'm going to jump right into that and go into a few other topics. And in the meantime, I encourage anyone to go into the chat, write something you want to be spoken about, or just write whatever you want on there, and I'll read them as I go. This time I wore my glasses, so hopefully I could see them better. So one of the main things that I have had some success with is fish oil. And I don't know if the camera will focus properly on it, but this is the fish oil that I take. That did help with the brain fog quite a bit. I take 2 or 3 a day. I take a lot. It's tricky to find a fish oil that works and you don't get that fishy aftertaste after. But that's one that's really worked for me. I've noticed it does help with the brain fog. Another thing that's really helped lately is milk thistle from Life Extensions. My doctor gave me this, and that has helped with detoxing. I think my liver enzymes were really high. They got down a little bit lower because of that, and it's helped my gut quite a bit, which is something I'm going to get into in a bit. Another thing that I take every day is this vitamin C here. It's not as acidic as most, so you don't get acid reflux and an upset stomach from it. And I found that has helped quite a bit. A lot of times I couldn't take vitamin C because it wouldn't sit well in my stomach. And then here is a B12 that I take. And I take that every day. I take breaks from all these, by the way. I don't take them for very long periods of time. But the other thing that I take that has helped a lot is Floristore. This is a probiotic that I take daily. The other probiotic that I take that's very important is Visbiome. I don't have one with me. I have to order more, so I don't have it to show you. But that's a really important probiotic for me. I've noticed that with ME, my illness goes as the gut goes. Like, however, I don't know which one is causing which, but if my stomach is not well, all my ME symptoms get worse. I don't know if it's actually the ME causing my stomach to get like that or vice versa, but it's very important to me to keep my stomach healthy. And that kind of brings me into one of the things I wanted to talk about is gut health. I feel like gut health is mentioned with ME here and there, but it's not spoken about as much as fatigue and brain fog. Maybe rightfully so, but I feel like the gut and the brain is connected quite a bit. I notice that when my stomach flares up, the brain fog flares up. They're very interconnected. I was wondering if you guys actually experienced that as well. And it's something that I have to be mindful of every single day with diet. A lot of times people ask me, like, what do you do to not flare up, or what's your strategy with diet? And really it's just don't upset my stomach. I have spicy foods, so it's personal for everybody else, but if my stomach gets upset, everything else just seems, it's like a domino effect. It's almost as bad as post-exertional malaise for me. It affects me that much, maybe even more than post-exertional malaise. Like, overdoing it can cause post-exertional malaise and crashes, but to me, eating like a really spicy food, really high processed or high sugar food, and that to me sets my symptoms off a lot. So I don't know how it is for you guys, but for me, it's pretty bad. I'll take a look more at the chat in a minute. Thanks for joining, everybody. I see you guys commenting there. I'll read some of those in a few minutes here. So that's one big thing I wanted to talk about. I feel like it needs to be talked about more. is stomach issues, IBS, just inflammation in the gut, having an upset stomach, being bloated, all those things I have all the time, cramps, pain, and it just seems like once I go to the bathroom and I'm not well and it's not a healthy bowel movement, I instantly get fatigue. I instantly feel terrible. Very, very underrated symptom. I also wanted to bring up something that is a very contentious topic, and I hope it doesn't stir up too much anger here, because it is something that upsets people from time to time. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the name of our illness, ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, my channel is, I often put ME CFS on titles of videos, things like that. Personally, I don't like the name CFS. I don't like chronic fatigue syndrome. I think it's a little bit demeaning as far as representing what our illness is like. I kind of equate it to calling Alzheimer's chronic forgetfulness. I think anyone that knows anyone who's had Alzheimer's, it's a very, very nasty disease that has a lot more to do with just being forgetful. And that name wouldn't really do any justice. To me, chronic fatigue syndrome does not do this illness any justice. I personally think chronic fatigue is a symptom of ME. ME, myalgic encephalomyelitis, a bit of a mouthful. The name basically means muscle pain and inflammation of the brain, in this case, the brain. And this is a neuro illness. So I'm not sure chronic fatigue syndrome does it any justice, but it definitely, to me, is a symptom of ME. But I'm going to keep using CFS in the name because it's still not clear. No one's really come out and really been an authority and say, hey, it's called ME. This is what it is. There's been no major institutions doing that. I think it's very important, though, to not leave people out that don't really understand ME quite yet or new. They've been Googling stuff. Chronic fatigue syndrome comes up a lot. But chronic fatigue syndrome has been linked to the yuppie flu and to laziness and to all these different things. The ME community's come so far away from that at this point that I kind of think it takes us back. But again, there's nothing wrong with using it. That's just my personal opinion. If that's what you guys choose to use or whoever chooses to use it, I think that's okay. I think we need to be inclusive, and a lot of doctors still use it. So I'm going to keep using that name in my video titles and refer to it as MECFS. But I really do hope moving forward it evolves away from that. I think that I think anyone who's watching this that has ME, or maybe you have a family member or loved one who has it, that saying chronic fatigue is not really encapsulating this illness very well, because that doesn't really allude to joint pain, brain fog, gut issues like IBS, POTS. The list goes on and on and on and on. Post-exertional malaise, blurred vision, migraines. There's so many things to this illness. Chronic fatigue syndrome just doesn't really do it. Although chronic fatigue is a big symptom of this illness. One thing I wanted to ask you guys is, how are you guys managing? Well, I know a lot of people are stuck at home, bedridden with ME. For those of you who have moderate ME and can get out from time to time, how are you guys doing with COVID? How are you guys managing this? To me, it's a little bit scary. There's a lot going on out there. We have compromised immune systems, most of us, and it's tough. How many of you guys are wearing masks? I know that's another contentious topic, at least in the States, for some reason. But I know for some people, if you have dizziness and these things, wearing a mask a long time, depending on the mask, can be hard to do for extended periods of time. So I often, when I watch the news or I read up on things and read articles about COVID, the pandemic, all these different things, I always think of you guys and myself as far as the ME community first. And I'm just like, wow, how this is hard for the average healthy person. this is like our worst nightmare to deal with this. So yeah, that's something I wanted to see what you guys thought in the chat. Let's see here. I was going to go into a few other topics. Let me read some of the chat here. Mr. Invisible, thanks for hosting. I really appreciate your videos. Thanks for joining me. And as long as I have the ability to pump videos out and talk to you guys and kind of inform as many people as I can, I'm going to keep doing it. Sometimes I go through flare-ups for months where I can't do videos. That's why sometimes some of you might notice I'll put out like 7 or 8 videos at a time, and then you don't see me for a while. That's usually why. But thanks for watching. Let's see. Tata, is that how you pronounce that? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Hi there. Good to see you again. Dixon, California. Fellow Californian, how are you? Ron Lopez, have you tried, I'm not trying to pronounce it, bovine, glandular for body. I have not tried that. I will look into that. I'll actually make sure to write that down. Mr. Invisible, I'm really curious about how to find a good PCP medical quarterback. I've seen a few of the best ME functional medicine practitioners, but am I not be able to synthesize all the information? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. But if you mean finding a good medical doctor, where are you at, first of all? What part of the world are you? I'm sure some people in the chat and I'm sure some people on the Facebook support group can help you with that. Any experience with glutathione? Daniel, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things that I take daily, actually, and I just ran out and I don't have any to show you guys, and I forgot to mention that, so thank you. I do take that off and on. I don't take it all the time. I'm not sure it's good to take long-term without taking breaks, but it is an anti-inflammatory from what I've been told to a degree, and it has helped me. It has helped with the brain fog and just a little bit with fatigue as well. So yeah, I do take that. I think it's hard to really find a quality one, and the blood-brain barrier, you got to talk to a doctor about it, above my pay grade, but it has helped me quite a bit. Mr. Invisible, what are your thoughts on leaky gut, driving mast cell activation, histamine intolerance, cytokine storms, and microglia activation? That's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that, but that's a very, I think most doctors wouldn't have a great answer to that one. That's a tough one. I think I've experienced some of that. I think I have leaky gut. I think I have some microglia activation. I have dizziness. I have neuroinflammatory type issues. Mast cell activation, I don't know a ton about, can't really speak on that. The same with histamine intolerance. Cytokine storms and microglia activation, I think, is something that I've gone through. I did have vestibular neuritis, and I think that could have triggered some issues with microglia for me. I still have dizzy spells from time to time. Not fun experience. But I do think leaky gut can lead to a lot of these things. I'm not a doctor, just based on what I've read and what I've experienced. I think leaky gut is an underdiagnosed issue. And that kind of circles back to what I was talking about earlier. I do think certain foods, gluten type foods, sugar, inflammatory type diets cause the gut to have a lot of issues and probably create leaky gut. But that's above my pay grade. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but from my experiences, I do feel like there's a lot going on with leaky gut, the blood-brain barrier, and inflammation. I spent a lot of time reading about that stuff, but a lot of it, it's hard for me to understand. Too much medical jargon in there. But I do talk to my doctor about it from time to time. Let's see. Mr. Invisible, other names. Yeah, I've seen that name float around, never took off too. I'm looking at ME as coming out of COVID in March. Daniel, so you're looking at ME as coming out as March, and I'm worried though ME isn't confirmed, of course. So if I understand correctly, you had COVID, Daniel, and now you're worried about having ME. Is that what you're saying? I'm glad that you're better from COVID. but it looks like you're having like kind of a long haulers issue with COVID. If you can, clarify if that's what you got going on, if that's what you're asking there, if you think you may have ME from COVID. That's actually something I was going to talk about. It's looks like you're saying yes. So I'm sorry to hear that. ME is a tough illness. I'm going to be frank with you. It's a tough illness. I don't want to sound negative because, you know, it's not what people want to hear. Hopefully you have long haulers and you slowly just get better and it's not ME. If it is ME, there's never a good time to have ME, but there's never been a better time to have it, because 10 years ago, it wasn't even really that recognized, and there was zero treatment, zero doctors that knew about it. I mean, not zero, but very minimal amount. And it's still like that to a degree, but there's more options out there. There's more testing. It's recognized more. There's more funding going into it. There's more options. There's different treatments that people do. So you can get better. My best advice to you would be to try to find a good ME literate doctor, and to don't push yourself too hard. When you've been healthy for a long time and you get sick, you're used to kind of wanting to push yourself until you get better. The thing about ME is post-exertional malaise. Daniel, read up on that quite a bit. Read up on post-exertional malaise. Take care of your body. Don't overdo it. And I truly believe that some COVID long haulers there's still a chance you might completely recover. Not a doctor. Don't take that as advice in any way, shape, or form. But I am hoping that it's just a long-lasting post-viral type flare-up, that recovery will take some time. I'm hoping, because I really don't want to see a lot of people catching ME because of COVID. That's not something I hope to see. But Daniel, one of the things I was going to talk about on here was an article from CNN about long COVID and ME. It's odd for people with ME to see mainstream media talking so openly about ME and talking about the symptoms and how it's debilitating and how it's long lasting and how it's a neuroinflammatory illness. So to me, it's extremely it's encouraging, but at the same time, I feel really bad that a lot of people are going to come down with ME because of COVID. It's hard to get excited that there's going to be new research and that the mainstream media is talking about it when you know a bunch of people are suffering. So that's really tough. Let's see what else we got here. Glutathione, IV, reduced. Yeah, I've had it IV and I've taken it in liquid form. Do you pace by heart rate? David is asking. I do. I wear a Fitbit usually to kind of I've kind of figured where my baseline is based on CPET testing, cardiovascular pulmonary exercise test, and also just from understanding where I start to flare up or I get post-exertional malaise. So I know where my heart rate needs to kind of stop increasing or staying there too long, and I take it easy, which is a hard thing for me to do. Miss Kel 35. Hey, finally caught your live. Awesome. Glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Daniel, I have good new PCP that I bought through a concierge service. Much better service and testing, just an FYI. Awesome. Mr. Invisible, living in Austin, ideally looking for a PCP anywhere, Texas, but have traveled to New York, Miami for treatment, and willing to go anywhere for improvement. I would love any suggestions. I have no suggestions. Hopefully someone in the chats can help you out there. David, you seem to be in a similar position as Daniel. You seem to get PEM after going climbing. Is there any good balance between being active and resting? My current approach is just to keep under 120 heart rate. Well, that's the $1 million question there. How active can you be without post-exertional malaise? David is Depends on the day. There's days where I can get my heart rate, I can push the heart rate a little higher. And there's times where I hit that heart rate, and just from getting there for a minute or two, I crash. And that's tough. That's really the balance that you have to figure out personally. And I do think it changes from time to time. That's the tough part. Let's see, possible ME, CFS post illness in March. So Davis, you had it. You know what's interesting, David? I've read that a lot of people that are long haulers got sick in March. Have you found that to be true? That most of the people are suffering from March, early April. I don't know if that means that that COVID's mutated, or that maybe treatment's just different. I find that to be pretty interesting. But yeah, that's I'm really hoping people. I have a friend that has had COVID, and he doesn't have ME. He never had any health issues prior, but he's got some long-lasting, hopefully not much longer-lasting issues of fatigue, brain fog, and just kind of being out of breath from walking up a flight of stairs. He's like 36 years old. Scary. It's really scary. Let's see. Major symptom for me is electric, vibrating skin, and internal sensations, common in ME. Daniel, I heard that was very common with COVID. I'm not sure that's super common with ME, although I bet you if you talk to enough people with ME, they've probably experienced that. Daniel, I recommend you go to Facebook and hop on support groups on there, the larger ones like ME Global. Talk to some people there. They have a lot of information, a lot of smart people, a lot of kind people. I think it's a really good place to go for someone who has a lot of questions about ME, being new to ME. If you take a look at some of the videos I've done in the past, I try to kind of make videos for people that are new and going in the stages of being new to ME, the questions you may have. Take a look at some of the videos I've made. Hopefully those point you in the right direction or help you at all. I do know that ME does affect the nervous system. So the feeling that you have in your skin might not be that rare. I haven't heard of it personally. I do get like muscle twitching, muscle pain, pins and needles from time to time. So I have had that. The electrical thing, I haven't had too much, or haven't heard of it too much. Let's see. David, does correspond with the UK peak, I suppose. Sometimes actually more than physical activity, mental activity can cause PEM flare-ups to be worse, possibly one to discuss. What would you like to take on that? That's actually a great topic. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I think Dominic, is that how you pronounce your name? I think that emotional, physical, mental stress, trauma definitely can cause PEM. I think any stress on your body, mentally, physically, emotionally, think of it like this. If you're ill with anything severe, any illness, even something acute, if you get super stressed out, all your symptoms get worse. Even if it's like a flu, let's say, if you have like a really nasty flu and you have to deal with, I don't know, a pet dying, a family member dying, something traumatic, or just a lot of financial stress, relationship stress, marriage, family, definitely you can flare up and crash and have post-exertional malaise. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's not talked about a whole lot. Crashes and PEM, and PEM is brought up, is usually talking about physically demanding activity. But you can be in bed all day long, and if your stress levels are really, really high, or you're going through something traumatic, I've experienced it when I had a dog for like 14 years, loved her to death, and when she died, it was hard on me. And my symptoms flared up pretty bad, and it felt like post-exertional malaise for like a month. So that's something that I'm glad you brought up. Not talked about enough. I may do a video about that later on, so thanks. Let's see here. I'm trying to catch up here on and thanks everyone for all the questions and activity in the chat. I really love talking to people in the community, so thank you. Let's see. Julie, you get buzzing, but it's not painful for you. So Julie, you've experienced the skin sensation. I hadn't heard of that. That's the crazy thing about this illness. I've had it for 15 years, and there's symptoms I still have never heard about. It's crazy. Daniel, you might want to check for mold exposure. Great comment there. Mold exposure is something that I think is extremely under value. It's not appreciated very much. I think a lot of people with ME actually, I think you have ME, but a lot of the symptoms may actually be due to mold exposure. I am going to do a video on that soon. I'm going to see if my doctor can speak on it a little bit. I'm going to see if I can interview him. Don't know if he's willing to do that. I haven't talked to him about it yet. But I do think mold exposure, there's a genetic test to see if you can flush biotoxins from mold out. And if you are not able to flush that out, and a lot of people with ME, swollen glands, are not able to kind of detoxify like other people, I think it's a big issue. I think it makes symptoms a lot worse. Some of the symptoms may actually be from that. So I think that's a really good point there. Let's see, MS-Cal, I can get PEM just from watching a screen. It doesn't have to be physical for me at all. Yeah, I just think it's anything that kind of wears on you. I think if you watch a screen long enough, yeah, I mean, it's really any type of stress, whether it be environmental, mental, emotional, physical, can really cause post-exertional malaise. It's a pain in the butt. It really is. Let's see. Starlit X, vitamin D, vitamin 6, zinc, vitamin 12, CoQ10, omega 369, charcoal activated supplements can help. Starlit X, are you referring to mold or ME, or just these are things that helped you in general? Daniel, for mold exposure, I don't know where you're at, what part of the world. Obviously, there are some areas where temperature and mold is more prevalent than others. You got to make sure that you're testing properly. And believe it or not, even the most tiny amounts of mold exposure, if you have problems getting those toxins out, even a tiny amount of mold can make you flare up pretty bad. So I would definitely look into that. Starlit X, both. Yeah, I agree. I think both. I think those things, the things that you recommended, are pretty good. I think people should talk to their doctor about them, but I think all those are pretty good advice. As far as the activated charcoal, some people use binders that are a little bit stronger. You have to get them prescribed, like Questrin, things like that. But I think activated charcoal is a good way to kind of do it over the counter. I took activated charcoal for a long time. It kind of helps the gut, and it just helps you feel better. I don't know about you guys, but it's worked for me a little bit. But I haven't taken it in a while. Let's see. Julie, it's been about a year. I know it's ME, but the doctors think it's anxiety. It's nothing like anxiety, just a buzz in my body, in your whole body. Doctors love, I feel like anxiety, depression is kind of a doctor's get out of jail free card. Who agrees with me on that? I think it's when they don't have the answer to one of your symptoms, anxiety, depression, stress. I feel like those are just like the easiest way to get out of having to figure something out is to just blame stress, blame anxiety, blame depression. It doesn't mean people don't have stress, anxiety, and depression and that it should be treated. But those three things seem to be the scapegoat to doctors all over the U.S. I don't know what it's like somewhere else, but for me, it's like, every single time I have an issue, they're like, well, you're stressed out. How's your marriage? How's your finances? How's this? How's that? I'm like, has nothing to do with what's going on here. Let's see. Let's see, Mr. Invisible. Anyone's thoughts on mycotoxin testing through Great Plains versus real-time labs? I don't have any experience on that. Maybe someone else in the chat can speak up on that. David, appreciate the videos, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate you watching. Anything that can get dialogue like this going. I love talking about ME with you guys, and the more we talk about it, the more eyes that see it, the better. Especially now with long COVID, and there's going to be more people with ME and stuff like that. I think it's important to get stuff out there. Julie, I always recommend magnesium citrate for anyone with any nerve symptoms, restless leg. Julie, I think that's a great advice. I've done that myself, and it seems to help. Let's see, avoid LED screens. Yeah, I try to as much as I can. Daniel, you were told to fast, then go on a low-carb diet. Well, I suppose going on a low-carb diet is probably good for anyone with any illness. I mean, a ton of carbs can't be great, but I don't know about fasting. That sometimes, I'm not sure that's the best thing for ME. At least for me, it hasn't been. It's a little hard on the body, puts a lot of stress on the body, and can kind of cause a flare-up in my case. It's difficult. I'm in bed. I've been bed-bound for 10 years of this, but definitely look into it. Miss Kel, 35. I'm sorry that you've been bed-bound and that you had a hard time. I'm sorry to hear that. Mr. Invisible, Daniel, me too. It's good for a short-term improvement, but reduce thyroid long-term. Yeah, so I love all the ideas being shared in the chat. I think that's what I do these lives for, and I love people sharing their ideas and saying what's worked for them. Unless you guys have any other questions here, I don't like to do these too long. For people who watch this afterwards, I don't want to make the video too long, although I could sit here and kind of read comments and chat with you guys for a long time. I do want to wrap up here in a minute. So if you guys have any other topic or anything else, shoot it in the chat now. But it's been great talking to you guys. And for anyone watching this with who's post-COVID or any post-viral issue, because ME's been known to be triggered with other post-viral, not just COVID. Some people flu, chickenpox, other things like that. ME can be a daunting illness, but there's a lot of people out there that you can get information from these days. There's more treatments starting to happen. People just from trial and error have been able to see what works and what doesn't. I just want you to not stress too much on this journey you're going to be taking. Just take it easy, learn as much as you can. You got to be your own advocate. A lot of doctors aren't going to know what to tell you, so just read as much as you can, take it easy, and the more you learn, the better you'll get. I just hope that there aren't too many people that have COVID that have to deal with it. Let's see here. Daniel, last question. Any vocal cord problems? Just started lately for me. Not really. Not for me. There are times where my voice just gets kind of randomly super deep and raspy. My wife will say, "Hey, you sound like Barry White," and I will notice just kind of inflammation in my throat. But other than that, not a whole lot. Any suggestions to get off Ambien? I have none. That's tough to get off of. I take sleep medicines and not easy to get off of. Dominic, cheers, man. Nice to talk about things. Yeah, cheers. Nice to talk to you as well. Julie, post-cytomegalovirus virus, CMV. I have that as well. Epstein-Barr virus as well. I think that's a very classic virus that kind of triggers this. Thank you for the live. Miss Kell, I'm glad you were able to join us, and thank you for watching. Take care, praying for all of us. Thank you, appreciate that. Prayers are important. Julie, looks like you have vocal cord problems as well. So see, it's like, just when I think I've had this illness for long enough, and I think I have all the symptoms figured out, I learn something new every day. And it just never ends, the symptoms and the list of symptoms. So I might do another live next week or in a couple weeks. I do enjoy this a lot. To everyone in the chat and everyone watching this post live, thank you for watching. Everyone in the chat, please take care of yourself. I hope the chat actually had a lot of good information as far as supplements and things like that. I just want to thank you guys for watching, and take care, pace yourself, and until the next time. And yes, please keep the prayers coming for all of us. I think that is very helpful for all of us. So take care, guys. I'm going to log off. I'm a little hungry here. I'm going to make some food. And until next time, take care and God bless.